What's up, everyone? Another day, another stream. Here we go. Today's been a wild day, but in a positive way, I think. I never know how quickly I should start speaking till y'all hear it, but I think it's like about, I would say like a 15-second lag. Would you agree with that? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Awesome. So, what's up, Seema? Mega's on. All right, cool. So Megha, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of tell folks what we're up to today, and then we're gonna go right into it. And we got the Desai Foundation on. This is great. What's up, Rachel? Aaliyah Keating. We got Oshna. Awesome. This is wonderful. So today is gonna be a really cool stream and really cool discussion. Transviolet, awesome. Many of you know that one of the biggest things that I'm super passionate about is combating menstrual stigma, but not doing it only through education and through awareness about access, but like also from a place of radical joy and like radical pleasure. And for me, what that means is like, instead of us saying, oh my God, we should destigmatize and love our periods, it kind of means more like, isn't it so awesome that our human cycle is tied to the moon? Like, isn't it so awesome that our human cycle tells us about, our own mental health, our own physical abilities, our own wellness? You know, when I'm super late on my cycle, it's like a blueprint for how that month went. Was that month a difficult month? Was it a happy month? Was I eating well? Was I sleeping? Was I having enough water? Was I stressed? You know, and those things affect our cycle, and we don't talk about that enough. This month is May. It's Menstrual Health Awareness Month. And then, of course, on May 28th, we have World Menstrual Health Awareness Day. And so it gives me great joy to bring on in a moment a fellow period activist whose work has long stemmed in this field. Before my marathon story went viral in 2015, she and I share a South Asian background and a desire to destigmatize periods, but then also love our periods and celebrate them. This conversation is going to be about the campaign that the Desai Foundation is running called Pledge Your Period. And in a moment, I'm going to go ahead and bring Megha on. And Megha, let me know if you want to go from your own or from the Desai Foundation. We can do either one. Yeah, cool. Hi, what's up?
How you guys doing?
Dude, today's been a crazy day, but I'm very joyful to have so many folks on the call to hold space around about period activism, about loving our own body. I want to go right off the bat and tell you I had this experience 2 periods ago, not my most recent one, but my March one. I had the best March ever. I had like just come off the Oprah tour. I like met somebody who I was like really excited about. It was my birthday. I had just filmed a music video in India. I was like healthy and like working out a lot. And I had like the best period. Like it was no pain, no anguish, right on time, like easy. And I was like, this makes sense. Like this experience is exactly like the month that I've just had. Then April came where I was by myself, lonely, depressed, in isolation, getting used to how serious this quarantine is, eating terribly, drinking, sleeping badly, all of it. And it was such a painful period. It's so interesting. It was like exactly the emotional stress that I had experienced of that April was exactly how I experienced that period. So having this conversation is so important because I don't hear enough people talk about that, but I find it so relatable when we are able to talk about it. So please do go ahead, introduce yourself, tell folks who you are, and we'll kick it off.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Karen. This is amazing. I'm so excited to be here. You know, I've admired so much the way that you have stood so loud and proud about not just periods, but so many of the different initiatives that you care about. And I've learned a lot from watching you. And so I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really honored to share this space with you. My name is Megha Desai, guys. Hi. I lead the Desai Foundation. We are a community development organization that believes in a holistic approach to elevating health and livelihood. And what that means is there are a lot of amazing nonprofits out there and that focus on one thing, right? Like they focus on education, they focus on health, they focus on building wells. They're all awesome organizations. It's just not our philosophy. Our philosophy is it's awesome if there's a school built, but if the kids aren't healthy enough to attend that school, then the school's going to remain empty. And so what we really try to do is create a multi-touch point in a community. So we go community by community, try to create multi-touch points to ensure the health of that community.
Right.
And we really believe that that's how you truly elevate an entire society. So one of our programs, because we care so much both about health and livelihood, has been our Asani sanitary napkin program. And so our program is 360. We do a ton of awareness work, education work. We produce retail quality pads, making almost 5,000 pads per minute. 5,000 pads per day per production center.
Wow.
So as of today, we're making well, not today since everyone's in lockdown in India, but on a normal day, we'd be making around 15,000 pads a day.
Wow.
And then we also have an incredible distribution system. And so what we do is we work with the women in the villages. And by the way, the women in the villages make our pads. And then we also have the women in the villages distribute our pads. And what we do is kind of like an Avon Ladies style situation where it's like, groups of women, except without all the negativity that comes with those things. For us, it's just a really great community development organization. It creates community. At the end of the day, all of our programs strive to cultivate dignity for every single woman that we work with. Or child. And so that's kind of the broad strokes of who we are. Personally, I come from a world of advertising, and I'm a singer, and so that's kind of a little bit about me. And we're excited to talk about Pledge Your Period. Pledge Your Period is our campaign where, very much like what you just said, it's one thing to fight for equality and tampon taxes and all these things that are radically important. But until a girl feels comfortable enough raising her hand in middle school and saying, hey, teacher, I got to go change my pad. Mm-hmm. That's where I really want people to be able to evolve to. It's why when we do our work in India, we don't kind of hide in the corner. We really make sure that our centers are smack in the middle of town. Boys and men need this education too. This is not just about girls. So, that's a little bit broad strokes of who we are, what we're about, and the mission that we're on.
And how long has Pledge Your Period been going? And is it like a yearly thing, or is it just ongoing?
So it's been we're in our third year, and it does kind of focus around May, because that's kind of when we engage the social media aspect of it. But from a cultural aspect, I kind of pledge my period every month. And it's very much like what you said about how you notice that you had that moment where you're like, well, I had a really great month, and I can feel that. Similar to you, my April period was a disaster. And
it's because all of our emotions were so rough in April. I don't know if anybody else went through that, but I'm happy to hear that you also had a tough one. I do think it's powerful that our cycle can be such a timestamp of what we experienced emotionally.
And it's not just physical. It's one thing I kind of expect if I'm dehydrated or I'm not working out that my period's going to be bad. But just emotionally, if we're stressed out, if we're lonely,
yeah.
And so it's interesting. This is maybe too much information, but I'm living with my nephews right now. And as a 41-year-old woman who doesn't have children, this has been a really interesting experience. Like for, 55 days living with young children. And I've actually never felt more like a mother in my life, and I've loved it, and it's been wonderful. And I was worried that my period was going to bring on this like weird mental, emotional thing around like, am I supposed to be a mother? Like, should I not be bleeding now? And it was really relief to me that I didn't have that. And it was really much like, nope, you're mossy material, and that's, you're good.
Totally. I really appreciate you talking about that, because honestly, even that nuance of menopause, or about like what it means to be a woman in relation to motherhood, and having a period in relation to motherhood, I think all of those are aspects that are also overly stigmatized. And I really appreciate all the folks on the call. I see a lot of my people, and I'm trying to wave to you all as you come in. I know we had DJ Reka on there. My homie Zach Witness joined. We got Sally Rue, Gratitude Gangster, Cody, Elizabeth. Like, all my favorites are joining. So thank you for being part of this talk. And I really appreciate some of you sharing. Like, I think Juan Music was like, yo, I had a really tough April as well, you know, and it's so like the fact that this is it's already May and I haven't actually had this conversation with anybody. Isn't that like that already shows that's part of the problem?
Yeah.
So I do think there's just something to be said about not only, yeah, destigmatizing, but like being so fearlessly excited about whatever indicator our cycle tells us that we're going through. So for you, what does May 28th represent? And when someone goes on pleasure period, which I've pinned to the bottom of the screen, what does that exactly do beyond them owning it for themselves? Where is the charity component? Because I know my folks, they want to be here, they want to support. Yeah, what does May 28th mean to you, and how can my people support?
I so appreciate that. You know, it's interesting. I entered this field of menstrual health around 6 years ago. And we spent 2 years with our nose to the grind listening. And I think that the thing that was the most deafening to me, especially in rural India, was the misinformation and the undignified way that women are forced to deal with their periods. And right now, today, in a lockdown, in a village where, you know, people are not able to have their jobs, not go to their jobs, there's, you know, limited income. I can guarantee you that every girl in every village all across India right now is not getting access to menstrual pads. And it's because there's one person that's probably allowed in the whole village to go out and get food and groceries or whatever they need. And there's no way that they're going to be allowed to put pads on that list. And it's this idea of them feeling like it's something they're so ashamed of, and they can't talk to anyone about it. And so I feel like the conversation for those of us with a voice, the conversation starts with us, right? The whole idea is if we give a voice to these girls, and it's not just girls, it's incarcerated women in America, it is girls in villages in India, it's girls in Africa in villages, it's all over the world. We happen to do our work in the villages in India, and soon with incarcerated women here in the United States. And so it is just really, for me, this campaign is about giving voice, providing access. Right now, during this COVID outbreak, we've been distributing pads for free in as many villages as we're allowed and given permission access to. Our team has been, you know, simply running around trying to pass out as many pads as they can. We are also still producing pads. And so the charity component is really simple. The Desai Foundation started as a family foundation. We spent the first 15 years nose to the grind experimenting. You know, like how startups, they have like their friends and family around and they get to their most viable product and then they bring in the investors. That's what we've done. So for 15 years, we experimented, figured out what we wanted to do, figured out our product, and we are now inviting all of you to invest. And because of that, what we do is that every dollar that is donated to the Desai Foundation is immediately matched 100% by the Desai family.
Oh, wow.
So every dollar is doubled. The second thing that happens is that dollar is almost tripled because almost all of our teams on the ground in India, other than our staff, are volunteers. Like, we're actually able to bring all these people and motivate all these people to volunteer. So that's an amazing coup. So that's one thing. So that's like the financial component of it. And the money goes to our three-pronged program: awareness, educating women that their periods are not dirty, educating these women that they can pray and that they deserve God's love when they are bleeding, educating women on how they should use pads. And I'll get into pads versus cups versus tampons a little later, but like, you know, we do disposable pads for many reasons. So it's education. Then it's production, providing jobs to these women to make these pads. And then it's the third thing, which is the distribution. Because we are a nonprofit, all of the money is completely cyclical. So it helps create a sustainable program so that it survives. If the Desai Foundation dies tomorrow, just evaporates, I can assure you that these programs will still continue on. Why? Because the women on the ground lead these programs.
Right. Huge.
And that is what your donation, your voice, your hashtags, your tags help give voice to. And that is what we're hoping this whole campaign will do. For me, I'm sorry, this is like the world's longest answer. For me, the Menstrual Health and Hygiene Day on May 28th, for me, it's a day of reflection. For me, it's a day of remembering that those of us of privilege that have never had to, think so really hard about, who can I talk to about what's happening with my period. I just shared my first period story publicly for the first time ever, actually. And it was a whole kerfuffle when I was like 12 or 13. I had this accident. We thought I got my period. It turns out I actually just basically broke my vagina. And then it wasn't until like 5-6 years later that I actually got my period.
Wow.
But I was able to speak about this freely with my mother and my sister and my aunt and my teachers.
Yeah.
And in these rural villages in India, they're just constantly told to be quiet. 71% of girls in India don't know what their period is before they get it.
Wow.
And when I heard that statistic, I was like, there's no way that that's true. That sounds crazy. And then I asked every single one of my friends that was born and raised in India, and all but 3 knew what their periods were before they got it.
Wow.
So for me, it's a real moment of reflection and celebration of the work that we do, and of the opportunity we have to transform the lives of these girls and these women.
Wow. And where do girls find out? Do you think they're asking their friends? Do you think moms are empowering them with knowledge? Like when women want to know, where do they go?
If they're lucky, they can ask their moms. If they're the luckiest, they have a sister. And these girls aren't really allowed to do a whole lot, in terms of socializing, if you will. They're going to school, and if they are allowed to go to school, and if they can go to school, hopefully they go to a school with a hygiene program like ours. One of the other programs that we work on is this hygiene program, and we have a couple hundred schools that we operate in. And it is a proper hygiene class where we don't ask the boys to leave the room when we talk about periods. I think if we're not educating a generation of men that are comfortable going to the store and buying tampons or whatever the case may be, it's a missed opportunity, because the shame will only continue if the men are part of that shame, and I'm not blaming the men. It's more just like it's responsibility of both.
Absolutely. It's good to see some of the comments coming in. Thank you all for being so engaging. Anvi and Phil, and we got Wife and everyone. The Desai Foundation is also telling us how to donate. Okay, so my question for you is, could you maybe give like 3 least hanging fruit, mid hanging fruit, least involved, middle involved, most involved way someone can get involved to support Desai Foundation and your work?
Awesome. So for Pledge Your Period, you can go to pledgeyourperiod.com, which is pinned at the bottom. And you can either do you can just pick up an image that's on the site, super easy, and just throw that up there and pledge your period.
Does Pledge Your Period mean it's for someone who bleeds, or can someone of any gender identity who may not have ever experienced a menstrual cycle participate?
Nope. The first 2 years we had men pledge. We had lots of men pledge, actually, because let's be honest, none of us would exist without periods.
Right.
So, you can pledge. We had a couple non-bleeders that pledged to, their mothers, who gave them life. Some of them had pledged to their partners and said, hey, I need to be more compassionate when you are bleeding. We had another person pledge for his daughter and simply said, my daughter is 13 years old. She's probably going to get her period soon. And I would be damned if she had to drop out of school, simply because she got her period.
100%.
So, yes, anyone can pledge. So first is, easiest way to pledge, go to the website and then just pick up an image and you can post and just pledge your period and say, you post the image, you pledge even a small amount of money and then tag 3 friends to ask them to pledge. The kind of more involved version is to maybe tell your first period story. And then the most engaging way, which we love, is when people do something unique, speak to camera. I don't know if you're familiar with the amazing Broadway performer Ari Ufser, but she wrote an original song for us about her first period, and it was amazing. that's how you can get involved in Pledge Your Period. But in terms of engagement with our organization, you know, we obviously work in a lot of other areas around health and hygiene and livelihood. And so we throw events, but we'll see what happens to those events in the future. But we host an event called Diwali on the Hudson, which usually happens around Diwali, which happens in New York City. We do an event
Are
called
you doing it this year?
So right now we are still planning on doing it. We will obviously playing by ear, and we are thinking about alternatives of what that might look like, how it might look virtual.
The Valley on the Hudson sounds so lovely. Wow.
It's a really great event. It's like 350, 400 people, best music ever, super fun. We mix it up every year, so we have a different art form. Like, you know, we have musicians one year, we had comedy show last year, we have a fashion show one year. It's super fun. And this year we're actually doing a casino night, because one of the ways that Indians, and specifically North India, they celebrate Diwali is by gambling. So we're bringing that into the fold.
Fun.
And so that is what we're doing there. So we have events. There's an event called Lotus Festival in Massachusetts that we host, or you could host your own, which is called Cocktails and Chat, which is like a group of 20 people. So that's events. And then, of course, you know, you all have talents that we don't have. So if you are an incredible writer or an incredible graphic designer or an incredible, you know, musician, or whatever your skill may be, reach out to us. You know, we can figure out the best way for us to collaborate together. And I think that's something that we've been really, really lucky to have. You know, we've had incredible filmmakers make, Shruti Ganguly made a beautiful, beautiful film for us that we're actually going to release on Menstrual Health Hygiene Day on the 28th. She made a beautiful film for us about our Asani sanitary napkin program.
Wow.
With a lot of ways to get involved.
That's amazing. Thank you. That's super helpful. I feel like that's super clear, and the Desai Foundation just posted as well. Let's see if we have any questions. If you have any questions, put them in the question box, so then we can share them with everyone. They pop right up. You did such a nice job of covering everything that I wanted to. You know, you got that New York efficiency, fam. Like, I mean, we got through everything. I really wanted to talk about what folks can do. I really wanted to talk about what your organization is doing. I want to talk about why it matters that we do this work. Let's see. We'll just give it a moment to see if any other folks have questions. But I know I'll be pledging my period. I know that we'll be both doing a lot on the 28th, which is Menstrual Health. What's the actual name of it? Menstrual Health Awareness Day?
It's Menstrual Health Hygiene Day, I think. But my team will quickly correct me.
What do you think about that word hygiene?
Oh, I love the word hygiene.
Okay.
So, you know, we have so many other programs in hygiene, and I know that hygiene makes it seem like it's dirty and therefore it needs to be hygienic. The word I don't like around it is sanitation. So I don't know if you know this, but menstrual health is generally considered to be in a category of the nonprofit world called WASH, and WASH is like, you know, literally WASH. It's in the sanitation sector. And that, to me, I struggle with a little bit.
Right.
So even when we're like writing grants and stuff, I'm always like, oh, the word sanitation. For some reason, the word sanitary doesn't bother me, but the word sanitation bothers me.
I think the reason why I don't like it is like this need for us to smell like rain, or like this need for us to smell like lemon fresh, like body soap, and like, you know, scent, like back in the day when they used to do scent like on the pads, like scented pads, which is problematic because the material that they're using to scent the pads. And also like the female body, like the human body, whatever gender you identify as, like when we are healthy, like we smell good. Like I really genuinely believe that. In fact, if I smell bad, sometimes I'm like, what have I been eating? Like, what am I stressed out? Like, because our body odors are also indicative of what it is that we're going through. Like when I'm eating clean and resting and like eating all my veggies and stuff, I feel like I smell like, you know, nature goddess vibes, like fully, like all the pheromones are on point. You know, I genuinely believe that. When I'm drinking, or like when I haven't slept, or when I'm stressed, I'm like, yo, like doesn't smell so good. And I feel like the period and our anatomy, I think it reacts the same way. And so that's why I've always had this issue when I see even in public restrooms where it's like female sanitation disposal, or whatever the fuck they just want to use to call the word period, or tampons or whatever. It's like, fuck you guys. Like we smell so good. You would be so lucky to be exposed to our whatever it is that our body is genuinely giving off, as opposed to this need to constantly like clean and change and remove, and you know, so that's why I wanted to ask you about that nuance. And I like
So
what you're saying, hygiene versus sanitation. I think that's fair.
yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. I've really never, I guess it's never affected me that way. I've never really heard that perspective. You
Yeah.
know, for me, hygiene is not about smelling good. It's just about keeping something
Clean.
clean, you know,
Yeah.
and just the way that we teach little kids to sing the happy birthday song when you wash your hands. You know, I think it's so funny that actually I'll get into that kind of the discussion around disposable, because I know a lot of people bring it up. A lot of people say to me,
And also, gratitude gangsta, can you put your question in the questions box so I can make sure everyone sees it? Go ahead.
so a lot of people ask me, you know, why don't you guys do reusable pads? And I said, I get that, you know, there is a lot of environmental issues happening in India, especially, but there are two really fundamental reasons why. In order to reuse a product, you have to know how to clean it. And in order to reuse a product, you have to have running water and soap to clean it. And most of the villages that we work in, they're running with wells. And,
Right.
you know, soap is a commodity that they may not have. And they may not, if they do have, they may not be allowed to use on a product. They have to use it on their hands. So, you know, that's the reason why. The other thing is, personally, I don't know if you've ever tried to use a cup. I have a very healthy relationship with my vagina. I mean, I literally talk about periods all day.
Yep.
And I have a really hard time using a cup.
Yeah, I relate.
And so for me, I don't have a problem like getting up in there and like inserting it and taking it out and all that kind of stuff. It's just uncomfortable for me. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going out into rural India and trying to convince people to use a menstrual cup or something, or even a tampon for that matter, you have to have a really healthy understanding of your vagina.
Yeah.
The honest truth is, most of these women that we're working with, they don't know what hole they bleed out of. You know, they really don't understand the fundamentals. And so and if you don't know someone's medical history,
Totally.
you know, you can't always
bring that up. It's a good point.
You can't really talk about whether you're using tampons or cups. So the safest option for these women is to use pads. And disposable pads at that. And so, you know, for me, getting back to the kind of hygiene of it, I think that it's really just about being, you know, clean and healthy. But it's so interesting to hear your perspective about that, because it's different. I've never heard it.
Yeah, I just think there's definitely in the States and like in general in sort of like a feminist history lens, there's always been this need for women to like clean up what their bodies do in order to be like sexually consumable to the male palate. So whether it's like shaving, whether it's getting rid of like hair on our face that naturally exists because of whatever natural testosterone level our bodies may have, smelling a certain way, perfume. I mean, things like that. Like when I was younger, I used to like wear perfume to the dances and things like that, and it would make me sneeze and I would feel uncomfortable, but I would do it anyway because I'd be like, oh man, like we gotta smell good. And then I was like, well, wait a second, when I eat healthy, when I sleep well, I smell fucking amazing, like raw, you know, like I smell way better. And our actual smell is the thing that someone's falling in love with. Like there's so many layers to it. It's so important. Like when I love somebody, one of the things that I miss about them is their smell, the way their skin feels, you know, all these different things these are the nuances of life we don't get enough to talk about and celebrate. Instead, the capitalist society is just trying to sell us a bunch of shit to sanitize us. And it's like, fuck you. Like what we do is the beautiful thing. Now, on the other side of that, you're absolutely right that there is a hygiene component where I'm lucky and grateful that when it's hot outside, I can take a nice shower and feel clean. Or when, you know, even in this Corona pandemic, going outside and coming back in and washing my hands with soap and water, like these are basics that you're absolutely right don't exist in the context of a village. And the ability to feel actually hygienic so that you don't catch an infection is a completely important category. And I appreciate you making that nuance because it makes a lot of sense.
A lot of these women, what they're currently using is, and what my mom used was you know, a rag. And what the life cycle of that situation is the following: the woman gets their period, they use this rag, maybe two they have, and they swap between. They wash that rag in a bucket of water, right? Because, you know, probably not with soap. And let's say that they're actually like really good washers and they're actually able to wash it clean. They then hang it out to dry, but the problem is that they're embarrassed by the stain. So they cover that rag with a sari or a chenio or, you know, a petticoat or whatever. And so there actually gets that rag gets no direct sunlight, and direct sunlight is a
Kills the
disinfectant.
germs.
And then they take that rag, fold it back up, and put it in their, whatever cupboard like
Sure.
have. Is cupboard an English word?
Yeah.
Have,
No,
okay.
or cupboard, yeah, cupboard, drawer, closet. I got you. Dresser.
I don't know languages; it gets confusing. So yeah, they end up, putting it in there, and then when they go to use it again, it's either still damp, or now it is infected. And so, when you're putting something in that intimate of a part of your body, and there are like microbes or whatever, and also when there's not access to healthcare facilities, these people don't have. I mean, I met a woman in a village who had 5 kids, never met a gynecologist, never met a doctor, had all of her kids at home. She worked on the farm, and she said to me in Gujarati that, she's like, I have, of course, what's funny is that she thought that I was the doctor because I was there talking about menstrual health, and I kept trying to explain to her that I was not a doctor. But she kept saying, I have a white discharge. I have a white discharge. And of course I knew that she had a yeast infection, but how do I explain what a yeast infection is?
Right.
And so what I said to her, I asked her if she wears underwear. And she was like, what? She's like, no, of course I don't wear underwear. And I said, and so you don't wear underwear, and then you're crouching in the fields, picking whatever your crop is. And I asked her what her crop was, and she said, wheat. And I'm like, well, yeah, you have a yeast infection. So, but again, I didn't know how to treat it, because in a village you and me, we go to the drugstore and buy Monistat, I don't know how to treat that,
right.
treat that. So then I had to make sure that she got the care that she needed. But my point is that the hygiene has a whole other level of importance, because it really is life or death in these villages.
Thank you for telling us that story. Yeah, even having these one-off stories brings the whole thing to life. It really crystallizes what folks are going through. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Let me share the one question. Gratitude Gangsta faithfully put it in.
Oh, wow. Yes. The question is, can we assist by volunteering our time? I think that absolutely. It's difficult in the villages to physically go in and volunteer. But if we talk about the time commitment that you want to make, we recently had a woman in Brooklyn named Charlotta Douglas. She came out, and actually she's a seamstress. So she taught women how to sew for 3 weeks, and it was amazing.
Wow.
And that was one thing. We've had other people come and take, whether using your own craft. So like I said, Shruti Ganguly did a film. So we have other people that are a lot of different ways to volunteer. And reach out. We'll figure it out. We're resourceful and crafty. So if you want to help us, we want to help you. So we'll figure out a way to do it. And also, I will say that I can't quite announce what our programming is going to be in the United States just yet. I think I gave you a little bit of a sneak peek earlier. But reach out. There are definitely going to be ways to volunteer for that program.
That's awesome. Can you guys please put your questions in the question box, because then it can be featured nicely like this. I see you both ask questions. You can tackle them if you want, but I like when it's organized. People, please.
Oh, I see a question that I can answer.
Go ahead.
Someone asked about specific regions. So right now we're in 568 villages in Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Maharashtra. We have worked with other states in bulk sales. We've done disaster relief in a couple other areas around the country, but primarily those are the states that we are in. We are not opposed to traveling to other states. So if you have communities, local NGOs that are in need of our programming, please reach out to us. We'd love to bring our programming to your neck of the woods.
Love it. Thank you. And then the question about London.
Do you give anything in London? No, we have not done any programming in the United Kingdom as of right now.
That's an interesting question though, because it's so true. When we think of need, we think of India, Africa, developing world. But I appreciate that question about what's happening in London, because it's so true. Even when I ran the marathon, people were like, why don't you just donate to places in need? That's not an issue in developed nations. And it's man, I leave my house and I see folks here on the streets who are homeless women and who are struggling, and even trans folks. There's not even a conversation about what it's like to be a trans man who experiences having a menstrual cycle and kind of trauma psychologically and physically that folks are experiencing. And there's just so many levels to this conversation. And
yeah, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the needs here in the U.S. I know that this isn't the U.K. because it's not my area of expertise. But let me tell you a little bit about what we have seen as the issues in the United States. First and foremost, the fact that we are still teaching our girls to hide their pads and tampons while they're going to the bathroom is just got to end. You know, we just got to be more open about it and speak more freely about it.
yeah.
Second, if you are an incarcerated woman or if you are an incarcerated bleeder in America, in almost every state in this country, you have to pay for your pads while you are in prison. And I'm going to put that a little into perspective. Only 20% of women that are of incarcerated bleeders are allowed to have jobs. If you have a job and you're lucky enough to have a job, even the highest paying job isn't going to give you more than $1 an hour. A pack of pads is between $3 and $5. So are you telling me your entire day's wage has to go to a pack of pads? There are a couple states where pads are for free, but the prison guards, based on all the interviews that we've done, use these as like negotiating tools. They are weaponizing pads to get behavior and favors out of these women, and it's just not okay. And so one of the big programs that we're working on is changing that and forcing the hand of these administrators to ensure that these people have access to the simple pads. Think about it. Think about like the health outcomes that would be better, right? Like less women in the infirmary, you know, that need medical help, less people that are having issues, gynec issues. So many different factors there. So that's one. Two is homeless women or you know, bleeders, anyone that's bleeding that's homeless. Actually, as part of our COVID disaster relief, we wrote a pretty significant check to the New York Food Bank, but earmarked that money specifically for personal care. So we are actually not in the business of writing checks. We just knew that this was necessary. If this is what we care about, we got to put our money where our mouth is and just, you know, forget the rules for a second and just do what is right. And so that is what we did. And so the New York Food Bank specifically has a program where you can donate specifically for personal care. So we did that. And so homeless, so, you know, for people that are homeless. And then the other huge group of people that are underserved in this market are if you are below the poverty line and you are in school and you are getting your period, you know, there are so many states where schools do not provide, you know, pads or tampons in schools for free. And if you are barely able to eat a meal, you know, how are you able to afford a pack of Always? You know, it's really, really difficult. So it is an income inequality issue. It is a, you know, an issue of privilege. And so we are able to go to the store and buy pads. I mean, I promised my team I wouldn't get into this because I get in trouble for it every time. But because I brought up Always, here in America and somewhere else around the world, Procter & Gamble, which is the largest distributor of...
Don't have to print the toxic ingredients that are listed in their products. I know.
That is true. That's one of the issues. The other issue, since we talk so much about stigma, is, you know,
the blue liquid.
They're called Whisper. And it's the largest brand of pads in India. And so here I am telling women to be loud and proud about their periods, and all the billboards that they see say Whisper. Now, I know that I'm small peanuts and I'm never going to change Procter & Gamble's name of their product, but I hope at least I can change the narrative. And so that is, you know, why we are so loud and proud about telling women to speak loudly about their periods. And that's why we pledge.
Amen. Amen. Well, that's a perfect place to pause and to thank you. None of us are here to whisper. We're here to scream. We're here to shout. I got all my folks on the call. Thank you for holding space. You heard Megha as to how we can all be supportive. There's many levels to it. The link is there, pledgeyourperiod.com. Make a donation, get a couple friends involved. Now is the time for us to be thinking globally, to be reflecting from the homes about how our decisions affect others and how our actions can positively affect others. And I think one thing that I really want folks to take away from this call with you, Megha, is just how intentional the Desai Foundation is about the work that it does, depending on the geographic needs of the region. So being super cognizant of like the fact that folks in India don't even want to hang up the reusable pad to begin with, or the fact that many folks don't have running water to be able to rinse out and reuse a menstrual cup, or the fact that tampons is just never going to be an option in India for the foreseeable future because penetrative products are so stigmatized and so controlled, basically. And then
I mean,
what you
my
mentioned,
grandmother was pretty appalled that I was using
using
tampons.
tampons. I know it's a crazy thing. So yeah, that intentionality is another reason why I support the Desai Foundation, and I hope my folks do as well. And for those of you who are coming from the Desai side and from Megha side, I'm Kieran. I'm Madame Gandhi. Please do stay in touch on my Instagram as well. And thank
Check out
you,
her
everybody.
music, and yes,
Thank you. Hopefully, I'll see you at Diwali on the Hudson because that sounds like a
yes,
joyous event. It's dope.
yes, or at the next Resistance Revival show.
Amen. That's right. Perfect. Hell yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you guys all for hanging out. I really appreciate it.
Bye, love. Bye, everyone. Bye, bye.